Уважаемые участники,
Distinguished participants, we will start in 1 minute. If there are anyone who needs to be invited, you can do it now.
Write this paper. Will you help me?
Let's take a closer look. What part of the solar system are we talking about?
Saturn.
If you were taking astrophysics, you could study in the metaverse.
Did you know the rings are made up of billions of icy particles?
Really?
Look at this.
You ready to do that paper now, right?
Yeah.
In the metaverse, you'll be able to teleport not just to any place, but any time as well. Ancient Rome. Imagine standing on the streets, hearing the sounds, visiting the markets, to get a sense of the rhythm of life over 2,000 years ago. Imagine learning how the Forum was built by actually seeing the Forum get built right in front of you. Hi, everyone. I'm Marnie Levine. In the metaverse, learning won't feel anything like the way we've learned before. With a headset or glasses, you'll be able to pull up schematics for your studying, or maybe even the service manual for a vehicle you're learning to repair. Let's say you're a med student or a doctor. With apps like OSO VR, you can learn new techniques in surgery firsthand, practicing until you get it right. Or, if you're studying Earth science, you could swim through the Great Barrier Reef, get up close to Earth's mightiest insects with your instructor, David Attenborough, whose VR documentary is playing now in Oculus TV.
This is a world of intrigue, a world of wonder, a secret world hidden to the human eye. Explore the extraordinary world of Micro Monsters 3D with me, David Attenborough.
Здравствуйте.
Good day, distinguished participants.
Session of the M.E.T.A Tech Forum. It's inspiring video, isn't it? Как правильно отметили спикеры,
As the speakers have correctly mentioned, Martin Levine is the director for the business development of M.E.T.A company. Indeed, using the new technologies, the formats and the opportunities for education become unlimited. Does it mean that the humanity has already made a leapfrog in delivery, processing, and transfer of knowledge and information? This is what we're going to discuss today. My name is Elmira Obry. Welcome to Forum M.E.T.A, Mobility, Edutainment.Technology.Action. And before I introduce the panelists, I would like to make a small teaser that active participants who will ask interesting questions at the end of the session will receive a present. I will keep it secret yet. The present will come soon, and I will tell you what it is and tell you how it can be received. I would like to thank the sponsors and organizers, ERG, Chevron, Visa, China Construction Bank, and GMC. Thank you for supporting our important initiatives in education. Let me now introduce the star composition of our speakers. Our special guest from Silicon Valley, Kwame Yamgnane, CEO of Qwasar Silicon Valley. Aziz Yeszhanov, the manager of CFRO. Rauan, director of the LLP Media Group. Sanzhar, Shalkarbekov, director of M.E.T.A, and Zhanat, director of Artificial Intelligence Department of Nazarbayev University, and also my colleague, head of Tech Hub, AIFC, and the director of the Affiliated Center for IR of the World Economic Forum. As the moderator, I will switch between speakers and languages. So, colleagues, if you haven't picked up your the headset for interpretation, let us start.
To add the first definition of our session, which is artificial intelligence. AI, what is the definition? It's a technology and systems which can sense, comprehend, act, and learn as a human. Setting around machine learning, we see a whole range of capabilities and application that makes AI so powerful in a modern reality. And let me pass the first word to our precious researcher, Ph.D. candidate, which is actually discovering and researching the AR, VR, and other immersive technologies in Nazarbayev University, Zhanat. Dear Zhanat, the futuristic concept of the human and machine collaboration exists since early 60s. What's happening now? Could you please guide us through these new technologies from the scientific perspective?
Hi. Thank you for the amazing question. I'm very happy to be here today and speak on behalf of our team at M.E.T.A at Nazarbayev University. You're right. Should I switch on the slide? Maybe. Okay. The concept of human-machine symbiosis were introduced by the researchers at MIT and Stanford long ago in 1960s, where they actually envisioned that at some point of time, technology would follow us as our assistants, and also the collaboration, the interaction between the computers and the human will move on to the level of collaborative work. And further, it was envisioned that at some point of time, the technology and machine will be an extension of our own intelligence, of our memory, perception, and the concept of augmentationism also appeared at that time in 1990s. And maybe it is also somehow related with the concept of augmented reality that we do have in our times, which is pretty amazing technology, which gives us an access to the augmented environment with the elements of virtuality, where we can use technology in order to look at the environment, and in addition to the reality, we can see some virtual objects like a video, or it can be a picture, or it is a sound, maybe a song, why not? And very interestingly, the very first headset, which was developed in 1960s, head-mounted display, was very bulky, was uncomfortable, and maybe even not safe. But thanks to the development of the technology that we do have these days, thanks to the computation, thanks to the advances in optics and material science, we do have this technology right now which are comfortable, and we can wear them in our daily basis. We also have artificial intelligence with an amazing algorithms for data processing, which really outperform our own human capabilities, which is really amazing. And as a researcher at the Institute of Smart Systems and Artificial Intelligence, and as a PhD student, my task was to use artificial intelligence and augmented reality to come up with some technology that could augment human memory. And we actually did it, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Oh, the previous one. We developed this system, and we named it as an exomem, like exoskeleton, like extension and support not for the body, but this time for the memory. Sounds cool. When I received this task to develop it, for me it was clear what is augmented reality and what is artificial intelligence. But the big question for me was like, okay, but what is human memory? How I'm going to augment it? How I'm going to make an assistant to help it? This led me to necessity to study the human memory. And actually, I did my research on this, And we move to the next slide. In our memory, we have 3 parts. The first part is sensory memory. It's actually how we receive information. We can see, we can taste, touch, smell, hear. Once we get the information, it's going to be processed. So it's going to be moved in the working memory. And here we actually do the learning, here we do understanding, here we do reasoning. Once we learn, information is going to be stored in the long-term memory. And this is actually a place thanks to which we have our skills. We can talk, we can walk, ride a bike. But before having the skills, an important part, we should learn it. And do you remember that when you try to learn something, at some point of time you say like, hey, I'm tired, just stop it, can you give me a rest? Why this happens? This happens because the capacity of our working memory is limited. In fact, we can pay attention up to 7 objects and memorize up to 4 objects without being tired, without feeling this cognitive load. And at that moment of my research, I was like, okay, I'm gonna need to work something with working memory. So I need somehow reduce this cognitive load that we experience and feel tired. And actually, I started to do research on this. Okay, next slide. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I did it. There are 3 types of cognitive load. The first one is due to the difficulty of the material that we are going to learn. So we actually kind of not control this. This is an internal and due to the material itself. The second cognitive load is actually how we deliver the information to our brain. It's like an instructional design. We can use a text, or we can use a video, why not, or a song. For some reason, I like this song. Okay, maybe I do like singing. And the third cognitive load is when the brain actually does learning, so it should have some energy. And the very interesting thing is like, if we're going to overload our brain due to instructional design, so the brain doesn't have capacity to do the learning. Therefore, we can use technology, and for example, we can use augmented reality technology in order to make this instructional design comfortable to the human brain, such that we could become a much more effective learners, and maybe we could work better, and then we contribute a bit more, and we, in general, be kind of happier. This idea that technology yeah, here. The technology can make us smarter. This is amazing. But what inspires me is that we can use technology in order to create environments where we could communicate, interact, learn together, and despite of our differences. I mean, we are people and we are very complex, and we do have so many sensory functions. But what if some of our sensory functions somehow fail or don't work? This happens. Some of us might have problems with vision, maybe with hearing, maybe with memory and general perception. So it's amazing that we can use technology in order to do these environments which would be suitable for us to communicate and to interact. And recently, I have learned about the research that the Microsoft team does, and I was very happy to read about this paper. What they do, they use augmented reality and artificial intelligence in order to make an assistive system for the blind kids, such that the kid could create communication and interaction with the surrounding peers. This is a head-mounted display, which gives a two-way feedback for the surrounding people and for the kid itself. So the kids surrounding, they can receive a feedback that for some reason they are not recognized, so they can maybe change their pose, they can come closer to the system, they kind of flexible. And this way, the system recognizes the kids, and the blind kid receives a feedback saying like, hey, look, there's a Jane, she's sitting in the chair and she's reading a book. And this way, the blind kid receives information about the surrounding and can say like, hey, Jane, I see you're sitting in a chair and reading a book. Which book you're reading? Kinda, I'm a reader as well, so we could talk maybe. It's amazing that at the level of the kids, we already teach our kids, we can teach our kids to be in one environment, to be more understanding, to be caring, to be flexible, where they can be in one environment despite of the differences, learn from each other, learn together, maybe at some point of time work together, and at the end of the day end up living in one community and one team. Yes, so when I was designing my speech for today's session, I really tried to cover part on the human, part on the machine, and the end thing between them. Thank you.
Thank you for such very interesting and inspiring presentation. Actually, I'm very keen to know more about this artificial intelligence and the cognitive skills development, because this is our future, I guess. We'll continue to talk about artificial intelligence with our next speaker, and I'll switch to Russian if you allow me.
So, well, usually perception of artificial intelligence happens through robotics, and we can easily imagine how a mechanized arm would work in an industry, or if there are some smart loading equipment in the warehouses like in Amazon and others, or in logistics services. And Zhanat has also mentioned that there is the exoskeleton concept, which is an element in robotics. And now I'd like to focus our attention on the fact that many people are now saying that the robots will replace us and will do our jobs. But in reality, we see that there is more and more collaboration between the human and the machine. There are new smart ways of doing things, and that even creates jobs. So my next questions will go to Sanzhar Shalkarbekov. What do you think? How can we raise a new generation of Elon Musks or Bezos or others, especially saying that Rail Kurs, the futurist and technical director of Google, says that in a few decades, we'll probably all have our own personal robots, maybe as soon as 2030. How do we raise a new generation of technical experts in this environment in Kazakhstan? Thank you, Elmira. Dear colleagues, my name is Sanzhar Shalkarbekov. I'm the director of robotics school called Robotek. One of our missions is to raise another Elon Musk here in Kazakhstan. And my team and I believe that robotics specialists should become part of Kazakhstan brand. And we do have talented children here. We've worked with children for many years. We train about 700 children per year, and we've got 52 winners of the robotics prizes. And these are talented children. The most important thing is to create the required elements. First, we need a good methodology, because robotics is a science, is a technical sector, it's multidisciplinary, it includes math, programming, chemistry, material science. So we need good training methodology for this niche. Another important thing is the teaching and learning process itself. We need to have trainers who are very enthusiastic about teaching, about working with children. That is a didactical process. And one of the key questions I ask when we hire new employees, we always say that those people need to be ready to make a contribution of raising another Elon Musk, and maybe we'll get such a person, and then in the future during a technical conference this person will be talking about the experience, and if they're asked a question on how they started in this technology world, I want this children to remember the names of their first robotics teachers who helped in shaping this person as a specialist. I don't care about him or her remembering the name of the school, but I want them to remember their first teacher. And that's part of our mission, and that's a big filter that we apply when we are working with our team. Every employee needs to remember that fact. Certainly, raising another Elon Musk or raising a robotics specialist is a long-term issue. We cannot do it overnight, and we understand it. And I see several aspects that need to be developed in Kazakhstan so that we can raise more and develop more engineers. First, we need to have a better link between schools, university, and industry, because one of the questions that the parents ask us is that, okay, we'll bring the children to your school, we'll invest into them, but will these children be able to find jobs in Kazakhstan? Because if you look at the headhunting website right now, you won't see any vacancies for robotics specialists, probably. But I've talked to large enterprises, large companies, and they are already thinking about robotics. Of course, they cannot do it all at once because there is a certain resentment from the employees who are afraid that the robots will replace them. But I think that this link between the schools, universities, and industry is very important. It's important to give scholarships, for instance, to winners of robotics competitions. It would be great for those people if they win a competition to get scholarships, because to get to that stage, you need years of engineering knowledge to build the robots, to learn how the robots operate, and to present your work. Another aspect, it's important to support children and support their participation in tournaments or competitions, because that's the highlight of their training process. The robotics tournament are not as big and well known. For instance, probably none of you know that today World Robot Olympiad in Kazakhstan has started. It will be done in 2 days, today and tomorrow, in Nazarbayev Intellectual School, and that's considered a prestigious tournament, and Kazakhstan sends a team. But this thing is only famous among limited audience, and it's very important to support participation in these tournaments and these competitions for children. And another important aspect is the support of the robotics schools. That's a different story. That's very capital-intensive sector, and that's probably why we see that there is slow growth of robotics schools. You need a lot of equipment, which depreciates, which malfunctions. The equipment gets updates very fast, and certainly if we invest into that, we can raise another Elon Musk here. And I think as a team, we usually try to think about what should be done. And there was one of the radical ideas that we need a lot of robots in Kazakhstan because we've got huge distances and not too many people here. And actually, populating it with robots could help in achieving economic growth. Imagine if there are autonomous cars going on our highways, loading and unloading goods in the warehouses. Or imagine some drones that would monitor the biodiversity or the fields with crops. And I think that robotics can actually contribute to building the wealth of the population, and that can be of big help to the society. That seems like a grand idea, but maybe in the future we'll see it happening, and maybe we'll become one of the countries that has high density of robots. Thank you. Thank you, Sanzhar. Thank you for talking about interesting things. Just on the 27th, we had a big session where we had 70 experts from education, and we were thinking about the future of education. And indeed, it's very important to think about this long-term vision. And actually, at that session, one of the statements was to work on that drones, on robotics. We also talked about the role of teacher as a facilitator. And it's great that you have a highly motivated team, and it's great to see that you help our children in preparing for competitions. Thank you. And I think Sanzhar identified the second trend of our metaverse, that is robotics, automation. And to continue the digitalization topic, I'd like to switch to our next speaker, Rauan Kenzhekhanuly. He is one of the pioneers and founders of M.E.T.A in Kazakhstan. And many years ago, Rauan has started working in this sphere, and now he's the head of a big holding, Bilim media group. So my question to you is, what's happening in the industry? Do you have any good news to share? What's happening to you? Any achievements that you'd like to highlight? Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Indeed, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. When we started this work, we didn't have the term M.E.T.A. That was called Information Technologies and Education back in the day. And the task was quite simple. The schools were getting access to faster internet. They got more computers, interactive boards or projectors, but there were questions on how to use that equipment, how we can support teachers in using that equipment, and that's where we saw an opportunity. And then the infrastructural changes and access to internet, growing number of devices have made our activities even more interesting, and it turned out that educational content is in high demand. We now have a team of over 200 people. We are present in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. We work with all schools here in Kazakhstan. We've piloted a program in schools in Uzbekistan as well, but we understand that we are just in the beginning of this road. And I actually liked what Sanzhar was talking about. He was thinking about the future, and he was visualizing what we could do and what we should and try to do. In our understanding, an in-depth digitalization of education for Kazakhstan and countries like Kazakhstan is probably the most important thing that could happen to us and should happen. Because in developing countries, and countries like Kazakhstan, there is a demographic pressure on the educational system. It's already been challenging, and it will become even more challenging. And that prevents the system from overcoming the challenges and finding resolutions of the problems in an analog way. What do I mean by that? We don't have enough schools in the country. We are lacking 3,000 schools. About 40% of our schools are smaller schools, rural schools, where you cannot have a full set of teachers, and children sometimes have to go to mixed school years. And Kazakhstan is not unique in this challenge. There are similar challenges in other developing countries. And overall, if we look at the world today, we will see that high-quality education is rather an exclusive service available only to a small percentage of learners. And you've heard that today from our new minister, Mr. Nurbek, and I think that the situation is even more challenging in secondary schools. I'm not trying to find someone to blame, but I'm just describing the situation in general. The system that was designed in the current form of education system is not enough to solve the modern challenges. Last year, the World Bank has published a report, and there were interesting indices there, and there is an interesting human capital index. And when they presented it, they gave some interesting numbers. We've been talking about it for a while, but when you hear that from organizations like the World Bank, it certainly has a different emphasis. So according to their data, only 1% of learners in Kazakhstan have access to what they call high-quality education. So our schools that are specialized schools, advanced schools, be it Nazarbayev intellectual schools or our schools that are now called Bill, they cover only about 35,000 of students, but we've got 3.5 million of secondary school students in Kazakhstan. So our job is to make sure that the methodologies, the content, and advanced practices that are now available to this 1% would be available to the rest. And this is no trivial job. And all the instruments that we have available now are the technologies, the methodology, and we are doing it by trying. We don't have certain reliable solutions on using the technology regardless of the location of the children. This is rather still as a object of research, and we are doing many things empirically. We are testing our hypotheses, and we are seeing what works. And the topic of this forum, I think it's very important. One of the components is edutainment, or mobility as well. Those are very interesting hypotheses that our industry is trying to test. And it's now become a separate industry, EdTech, and we are trying to find tools that would work. The pandemic, in this sense, has been, on the one hand, a shock, but on the other hand, it was a blessing in disguise because our colleagues and ourselves were able to test many different ideas, to test many different hypotheses. And many of them have worked, and we've seen great results. Some things did not work as well as expected, but on the other hand, the pandemic happened and the whole system had to switch to online mode almost overnight. And all of us had to master those skills, those who were the proponents and opponents of the technology. And the response to that demanding switch was very different. But overall, we can see that after 2 years, the educational system in general was experiencing fatigue from this format because they had to switch very quickly, because no one was really ready to make that switch happen. Even we didn't have that readiness, although we were probably the most prepared. And no one expected this to be such a drastic and quick shift. The things that we worked on before the pandemic were rather the systems that would support a teacher in real classroom. But then the switch happened, and we had to replace the school system in terms of the content and functions of the platform. And going back to your question on what's happening now, I think that right now we have a more rational approach to assess what we've got, which of the hypotheses worked and can really help us in achieving our objectives. We are also very happy to see that the government, the regulators, maybe thanks to the pandemic, have started this shift to digitalizing education. And the first step that we are expecting, and we want everyone to pay attention to that, the very first thing we need to do is to regulate the EdTech and remote learning. We don't have specific provisions in the regulations on what it is. We don't have any professional requirements for participants. The regulators cannot conduct expert evaluations. Like, everyone knows how to validate the textbooks, but people don't know how to do the same for educational content online. Another thing that we are concerned about is that, on the one hand, the government is paying more attention, but on the other hand, the government is trying to deal with those things that they understand better. For instance, they now understand that we need to somehow collect the data. We need to automate some school services, like building waiting lists or hiring teachers or doing accreditation. These things are, of course, important. I'm not trying to offend my colleagues who work on that, but overall, those are not the core issues in EdTech. Content is the most important thing. Methodology is the most important thing. We need to think about the ways we can effectively digitalize the content to make it interesting, to make it easier to remember things, understand things, and master the material. There are some interesting facts on what we did during the pandemic. For instance, in the pandemic, we had to move the calendar plans and curriculum to online modes. So can you imagine 11 years of schooling, 37 different subjects? Have you ever thought about how many skills a child needs to learn, or how many paragraphs are there in these books? And it turned out that it's about 12,500. So if we go years 1 to 11 of secondary school, the child will cover 12,000 topics, and their understanding of these topics will build this whole idea of life, environment, and so on.
And the digitalized response to the question on the efficiency of education is, in general, the answer to the question which of the 12,000 topics the child will really use after the school. You see, and when we got all those topics and we calculated them in the form of digitalized lessons, where there is a part related to the explanation, training and mastering and evaluation, and all these parts were visualized, simulated, and packaged into the lessons or with exercises. We practically now get the tool that helps us building a kind of a matrix where we do not worry where the child studies, but we can understand where the child is located within this matrix. He is at this point in maths, and this point in physics, in any other subject. And technically and theoretically, we can now build the personal track for every child and to do some kind of a test for the child. Now we at this point, we entered at this point, and we need to be over there at the top. This is the simplistic approach, and this is already possible. So we have done a lot of work. We did lots of things in terms of technology and the content. But now we are facing the opposition. But this is the opposition by the system, which is not really realized by the system, and it is somehow frightening for the teachers and for the regulator, because it is a kind of unrecognizable fear of losing control, of losing job, of losing interest, and so on. Yes, and these are quite exciting challenges. On the one hand, we all realize that this solution, we are not naive. We are not saying that we address all the issues using EdTech solutions, but it is absolutely obvious that there is a high capacity of improving quality and ensuring access. However, there are some challenges. Thanks a lot, Arman. Let me shed some light. We are probably being listened by the Ministry of Education. That probably individual track of education in digitalization is indeed important, and it is important to deal with the teachers and to communicate communicate all this to them. Just a small question to you. Who should be digitalizing education, state or business? This question is quite relevant for all the countries. Many countries tried to do it themselves at the level of the state. We also had this attempt. You know, there was a big project called e-learning, and we all know what it ended up with. Developing such system in a consistent way under this, with the state financing is extremely important. I used to be a civil servant, and I do understand that on the one hand, the government wants to control and to have the full ownership of the process, but at the same time, the development of such systems requires a lengthy and consistent work. But the state is built in such a way that people come and live, and every newcomer, new manager comes with his own vision or her own vision. And it's not true only about Kazakhstan, but all over the place. And if we keep changing the vision under this platform, because there are lots of issues that need to be borne in mind, and they have to be consistently developed, including functionality, methodologies, and many other elements. Therefore, it better works in business. However, at the same time, the state should remain the regulating facility, and the state as the regulator should have the competences to go ahead of time and to set up new requirements. But now we quite often observe that the industries and businesses are much quicker than the state. That's exactly so. Thank you very much for your very open view. Continuing the topic of technologies, I would like to shed light on the new trend on immersive learning using the new technologies. You can sometimes come across XR notion, which is the merge between AR, VR, and a lot of other technologies related to virtual environment. I would like to ask the next question to Aziz Yeszhanov, the manager of Sifro. Aziz, your project is exciting, and I'm sure that you will surprise us today. And I would like to check with you, what are immersive technologies available in Kazakhstan, whether if they exist? Do we have any chance to become a part of Metaverse? Thanks a lot for your question. Good day, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Before I answer the question, I would like to express gratitude primarily to the organizers of this event. For us, as an IT company from the southern region, I'm from Shymkent city. Events like this and platforms like this play a great role, and they open great prospects. For example, during our participation in this event, we built a productive community between the regions. We identified the partners that we would like to collaborate in our future projects. This is indeed great. So thanks a lot for that. As for the immersive education technologies, let us first answer the question, what is immersive education? Immersive education is a method that actively uses artificial or modeled, simulated virtual environment. It could be VR, as you may have heard. And as a result, the learner, it could be a student, a school child, a business person, can better learn. He is better concentrated in learning, and he is deeper immersing in the education. By using gamification, you don't have to motivate the person. He is self-motivated. Therefore, this method is the future of education, and these technologies are going to be actively used. Another question is whether we have such technologies in Kazakhstan. Our company started analyzing the market in Kazakhstan, and we see that there are some few IT solutions. They are mostly foreign companies based in Kazakhstan, or due to some reasons they are present in Kazakhstan at the moment. However, there is an advantage because the local IT companies are gradually starting working in this. For example, when we participated yesterday in the exhibition, I would like to comment on one project, which is Academics 3D, which is a very nice product that allows students of health institutions during the studies to apply virtually, but practically apply the theoretical knowledge. They can see the anatomy of humans and can do the surgery. So this is a very good product. In addition, we also saw other good solutions such as VR technologies. So we do see some prospects here for the future. As for metaverse, I would like to demonstrate here our contribution of our company and products that we produce in Shymkent. Please look at the video. That is, before we launched the school, we didn't know that this is going to be this opportunity. This is Shymkent city. For those who visited Shymkent, this is Baydibekbi Avenue, which we've completely digitalized. And you can walk, play, and run across Baydibekbi. And this is a famous shopping mall in Shymkent, which we also digitalized. What opportunities does it provide? Your virtual avatar can enter this shopping mall. You can try some garment and click on book, and this good is going to be delivered to you. So this is the virtual view of our colleague Arman Mahataeva, and on the left-hand side his virtual personality, and we can try on the garments. And what kind of opportunities does it offer? Some people probably have ordered the garments from internet, and the biggest issue is the sizing. By digitalizing, we ideally get the match of your garments, and walking around the city, you can book or order this garment, and it will be delivered. We had a dream with my friends. From my childhood, I wanted to become an actor, but it didn't work. And I could be digitalized, and you can be digitalized in our future film. Did you see Robots, Death and Love at Netflix? Imagine that you become a part of this movie, a key character, and these opportunities are available now. And it's obvious that this digitalized city of Shymkent, where we are going to introduce universities and virtual education. We are also working on 3D modeling using animation. We would like to have our animated cartoons produced in Kazakhstan were none worse, and even probably better than those of Pixar or probably Walt Disney. And for this specific event, we prepared a short cartoon by our students who study in Sifro, coached by our manager, Anatoly, and this cartoon was prepared during 2 weeks. Please have a watch. This is exclusive for EdTech Forum. The guys are tough. Oh, how Shymkent has prospered much with mountains. The city doesn't have any mountains, just for your information. Thank you. Guys, you are incredibly tough, and I want to be frank. I visited the guys 2 weeks ago, so during the 2 weeks, they put together such a great rendering. If you do it within 2 weeks, I cannot imagine what you can do within months or years of your work. Indeed, it's a great project. If there are any investors here in the room, please pay attention to this.
Intelligence, and let's talk about everyone's favorite. What do you think? What is this? It's work. AI is a new work colleague, which is actually hard to get to know at the first place. And we all know that not all of our colleagues are easy to understand. But in my opinion, the AI is this kind of the new work colleague, which is we have to understand and get to know more closely, because it's not going away anytime soon. Gartner says that artificial intelligence created more jobs than actually people are looking for nowadays. Dear Kwame, what do you think would be the future of the workforce according to all these meta things happening globally?
Thanks a lot. So first, I would like to thank you to invite me to the. It's always great to come in Kazakhstan. It's my third time now. You know, it's growing here, so it's worked very well. So about about AI, and so I think that was like interesting to see like AI is a very technical. Is a very technical matter. Like you had like at the beginning of the conference today, like an example of what we can do with it, and you see like it's you need like to be like, I would like to say, a Ph.D. to talk about AI, and it can be like you can be like some fear about.
Kwame, sorry, could you please get closer to the
Yeah, of course. You can be a bit like scared by the AI, but in fact. The good thing is, in fact, you are working with AI today, you are living with AI, and you don't know that you are living with AI. And that's the same for most of the parts of what's happening with digital or electronics. If I talk to you about, like, for example, like quantum physics, it's a very, very difficult topic to talk about. Like, you need like to be very high-end to understand what we are talking about. But all of you, you are using quantum physics like every day, okay? I guess you all have like a phone on you, and in a smartphone you have a processor, and the processor is built over like transistors. And for transistor to work, it's work on one of the basics of the quantum mechanics, which is called superposition. So I will not give you a master class about superposition in the quantum physics, but the most important thing to hear is to think like, finally, you are using it like on every day, even you don't know that it's maybe part of the transistor system, how does it work, but finally, you are using it like on every day, and it's the same for AI. So, who's got an Instagram account here? Okay. So you too, you are part of the people like walking in the street like like that. Huh? So if you are so beautiful on Instagram, it's not because you are beautiful, huh? It's because there is an AI that imagining that you are beautiful in your mind. It's just like, okay. But so you see, like, you are using AI all day long. And I guess also if I ask the question, who is working with an email? You're going to say to me, like, we are all using an email. But behind all emails today, there is an AI because we need to manage spam and things and security and whatever. So you are using AI as a colleague today, and you don't know that is your colleague. So from that, AI, and it has been said by my dear colleague on the right side, who is Ph.D., is something that enhances the human. The same way you are using glasses today to have like a better vision, and through that better vision, I guess you understand, like you are analyzing the world a different way if you are blind or if you can see. So it's very important to have like an enhanced system that enable you to have a better vision of your environment, and as a human to take like more decision. So, and this like is going to influence a lot your work. Like for instance, for example, you take someone like me. If you remove me my laptop, I'm a completely useless person. In fact, I don't know if I can get home tonight, and I don't know if I can take the plane tomorrow. Like, no idea about that. Like, it's my enhanced system. So you remove my laptop, I'm a dead guy, okay? I'm a software engineer, no laptop, I'm a dead guy. No electricity, no laptop, no network. I have nothing to do on Earth, okay? So that's why technology somewhere, I hope you understand, really like impacts what's going to happen on the world. So don't be scared with your AI colleague. You already get it, and you take already picture with it on your Instagram. So, and you are beautiful.
Thank you. Let's continue to talk about the technologies. Previously on the session, Ministry just mentioned about the skills gap. And I guess this is a critical element. A lot of things has to be done on a governmental level, on a social level. And I guess we are on a stage where we're facing the huge social challenge, how to intervene and interact with the technologies nowadays and even further. So what are the critical skills needed to just make this all meta things happening and to play out finally?
So it's so here it's a fundamental question. Like, honestly, it's one of the most challenging things that we are talking about today. We have strictly no idea of the job of the future. Okay, strictly no idea. We don't know what's going to be your job tomorrow. We can prepare kids for robotics, but we don't know if robotics is going to be an area of the future of work or not. We see that maybe something's going to happen. I do software engineering. I propose software engineering as an education. I don't know if software engineering is going to continue to exist tomorrow. I'm just going to give you a very good example. I have a high school degree in computer science that I passed in 1993. I'm quite old. When I had like my computer science major in high school, we did some internet things, but the HTTP protocol did not exist. So when my teachers, they used to teach me like some course about, you're gonna learn how to code using like language that does not exist anymore. You're gonna learn what is Gopher, what is Wise. You are staring at me like, what is talking about Gopher, Wise? But that was before HTTP, and nobody knows about that. So the big problem is you have on one side an education system where basically you have two major issues. The first one is they try to teach you about things that they are kind of sure is the right skills you need to have. But in fact, teachers like me, like any person here, we are not able to know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if they say to you that they know the future, it means they are lying to you, okay? So we don't know, simply we don't know. We teach people mathematics, physics, English, Chinese, history. Nobody knows exactly why in terms of skills and how you're going to use them tomorrow. Like, how many of you did, like, I don't know, course in mathematics during at school? Okay, all of you. Okay, how many of you use mathematics every day at work? And that's it. Okay, and on the other side, we ask like all the kids, and usually things can turn really bad if you come back to home with a bad mark in mathematics. Okay, so you have to work, and nobody knows why you work on that. So this is one of the major problems, and the second one is the completely incapacity of the educational system to do something massive. Okay, if each time you have to teach to 5,000 students at university, you have to build a university as nice and as big as the Nazarbayev University. How you going to manage to bring university to the world, to billions of people? Like, it's not sure that the Earth can support all the construction in terms just of brick and mortars you need just to have enough universities for people. Besides, like, all the problems that has been proposed by the CEO of Bilim, it was completely true. Like, there is plenty of problem. I don't talk about the content methodology, just like in terms of brick and mortars. How many chairs, how many tables we need to build, so how many trees we need to chop to be able to build them. So this has led to some, I'm going to show you here, like this is like, for example, all the skills that has been, there is 10 skills, 10 major skills that has been proposed by the World Economic Forum in 2020, saying like we must address those in 2025. So if you take a look, active learning, complex problem solving, resilience, technology, there is no mathematics, no English, no geography. There is strictly nothing that you learn in a high school today, okay? And they said to you, it's the most important part that you need to learn in 2025. This brings like some consequences. If you take a look on the results in that study, for example, you have 50% of the people will need to reskill in terms of education during the next couple of years, and they're going to need to reskill about 40% of what they have learned. So the gap is absolutely huge between the reality today and what we will need to do tomorrow. So if you take like Western countries where I come from, it's especially difficult because the system is completely locked by the legislator, like everything is so complicated, everything is super politic. You have like in the US, for example, it's, you have like 50 states to manage, the federal state, like, and you have the universities, the college system, the private system, and all of that bring like a huge complexity, and you have millions of people that are living around that complexity system, okay? Where somewhere, like countries like Kazakhstan, I don't say that there is no politics in Kazakhstan, but in fact, I think like somewhere is maybe less complicated if you take your country who have finally the will to grow, to directly try to jump on the new skills system, like what is required. And so I think like somewhere there is like a really, how to say, like there is a lot of hope for a country like Kazakhstan, because if you go directly to the point, instead of building another 30 universities that basically give you a course in geography and history where you don't need that for the job of the future. I'm talking about the massification of education. You still need an elite of Ph.D. specialized to build like very specialized things. I'm talking about the massification of education. I'm not talking about the 5,000 PhDs. I'm talking about like the millions of people who need a job tomorrow. If you go directly to the point of, instead of trying to create like 3 million PhD through a university system, but you try to do whatever is required to go directly, strictly to the point where you are sure that in a couple of months you can teach to someone a job of the future, the skill of the future. Even when they write here, like, when they write like cloud computing, engineering skill, we are not sure that cloud computing is going to still exist in 10 years from now. I'm talking about the first list of 10 skills you can see on the World Economic Forum at the beginning of that slide. When you teach those things, you are sure that your population is going to get ready for the tomorrow jobs.
Thank you, Kwame. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, but it will be very, very tremendous, probably, and very interesting to pass through this transition period. Thank you for mentioning World Economic Forum, actually, so it will make me easier to pass the next word to our last but not the least speaker, the head of the tech and actually the lead of the World Economic Forum Affiliate Center of C4IR. And I will switch to Russian.
So digital twins, surrogates, Internet of Things, smart systems. What else can we expect on the verge of the fourth industrial revolutions? What are the megatrends? And that's my question to Pavel Koktyshev, and he'll be a good person to tell us about what is happening on the verge of the fourth industrial revolution. And a second question right away. So we were talking with Kwame about this gap in competences and knowledge. So maybe we are missing something else by focusing on these technological breakthroughs. Thank you. Thank you, Elmira. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's my great pleasure to see that this session has been interesting to our audience. Actually, there probably should be even more visionaries who can focus on that in our society, in our country. And let me start with your second question. Because there have been a lot of discussions about where the technology is going, but now I'm asking myself a question of what do we do with it? How do we scale it up? What can we do? If we want to raise another Elon Musk, what can we do? And what should we do to make our chances better? As a structure, as this brain trust, we are working in AIFC since last year. That was a joint initiative of the government of Kazakhstan and the World Economic Forum. We have the Ministry of Digital Innovations and Development who works on the part of the government, and we've got Mr. Musin, a visionary who is responsible for many different dimensions: aerospace, innovations, digitalization. Now we just have to build on that. But jokes aside, I think that in every or any country, the government policy can either accelerate the processes or slow them down. And there are 14 centers like ours all over the world. In the CIS, there are 2 centers like that, in Azerbaijan and here. And we are working on making sure that the advanced up-to-date practices are implemented as soon as possible. And in this sense, there is a lot of work ahead, as Rauan has mentioned already. It's one thing to talk about scientific progress, but it's a completely different matter when we start talking about perception of the society and readiness to implement those technologies. That's another aspect that makes things even more difficult. And I'll probably talk more about the gap in the policy. We now understand that we cannot just stagnate, we cannot go back, and we need to accelerate. That's something that we are striving for. But then some simple things happen. When, for instance, we work on investment projects, large projects in AIFC, among others, imagine what happens to a project if it becomes part of the mandate of even 2 committees within one ministry. It's like a Bermuda Triangle. But imagine these are not 2 different departments of a single ministry, but imagine if those are 2 different ministries or several stakeholders from different organizations. And you need to understand that the innovations in the technology are complex matters, and they require a lot of different competences. So without switching approaches to policy, without building capacity of government officials, this won't be possible. Otherwise, this Bermuda Triangle will just grow and grow till eternity. And I don't want to be too pessimistic at the end of this very motivating session, but individuals indeed can change the world. And we do have great individuals in the room, be it Sifro or Bilim or others, but we need more visionaries like that. I guess some people don't like what I'm saying, so they're switching the sound on. But in this case, I think it's very important to make sure that those practices will include this management skills, agile approaches. So it's not about the technology itself, it's about managing the technology. We need to bring those management skills into the governance structures. In Kazakhstan, the role of state is very big. About 70% of country's GDP is generated by the state-owned enterprises or quasi-state enterprises. And then, if we expand this to sectors that are subject to regulation, that's even bigger piece of the pie. And on the other hand, civil servants are not aliens. They haven't come to us from a different planet, right? There are people we meet every day, in my opinion. Today, I think we just don't pay enough attention. We aren't proactive enough in building their capacity and retraining them. That's one part. And let me mention a thing that we are doing as a Fourth Industrial Revolution Center. We conduct benchmark analysis of international technologies, be it we look into regulation, like how Chile, Brazil, or Rwanda regulates drones, and then we try to bring that analysis in the ready-to-digest form to the government officials. We're saying, hey guys, take a look at that, you can make use of that. And the second thing that we can do, and that's more of an appeal to the EdTech community as advocates, as promoters. And I don't have the answer to my own question. Maybe we actually do need these immersive technologies to train, to educate people, to make sure that they have a proper understanding and comprehensive of technologies. Because the gap in skills is there. And it's not only the gap in skills of drone operators or people operating the machines in the industry, but there is also a gap in skills of the regulators. And being a libertarian myself, and I would probably think that it might be easier to live in the world without the state, but the reality is different. We are living in a country with a huge government participation. That's why we need to raise their awareness. We need to build their capacity, not just introduce the technologies to them, but maybe we can use the immersive technologies or others to build their capacity quickly. Because if we don't build the capacity of the civil servants, they will become the barriers that prevent us from raising another Elon Musk's. And there is a joke that goes like, if Elon Musk were born in our country, he'll still probably be in prison for PayPal. So what I'm saying is that let's change our approaches. We need to change ourselves, but we also need to change people around us. Thank you, Pavel. Thanks for your remarks and being very open. And some closing remarks.
That experiences are going to become bigger and more immersive, with the ability to interact with millions of people of all over the world in a single shared virtual world. Digital assets and avatars will be more between different aspects, and full economies will emerge to support a wide range of contributors. Being a change manager, I know the magic of the little steps. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's definitely sure that the new era has already started. Спасибо вам большое за то, что были с вами.
Thank you for being with us. It was meta interesting, and as I promised as a moderator, we will allow 3 questions, and the best question will get a book. And that is actually a book that helped me to become a woman in tech. That is the Accenture book that has blown my mind at the time. So we'll allow 3 questions. Please, someone will help us with the microphones, and let's be fair, and first raising their hand will ask the question. Hi, I am a teacher in Bilim school. I have a question on robotics, and it's a question to Sanzhar. Do you have schools, robotics schools for children in rural areas? Do you have any programs? Because those are usually the children left behind. Thank you. That was a very good question. Actually, that's something that we are working on right now. Our team is now digitalizing the methodology and the materials that we use in our work. Those are materials for children aged 5 through 14. There are 32 classes per year. We are trying to digitalize all these materials now, and then we will expand that as a subscription model to the schools in various regions. And there is a big request from the schools that we talk to, and indeed, that will somehow reduce the burden on the teachers in the schools, in rural areas, in remote regions, because they are overloaded with routine work. And robotics is a separate science, and it cannot be learned overnight. So hopefully the materials we prepare will help in getting into that business, starting the training process, and hopefully this will make the robotics classes even more lively.
Thanks a lot. This was the second hand, and that young man over there can ask the third question. My question is to the person from California. You drew a very bad picture of a laptop being removed. What is your happiest picture in their life?
No, I just said, like, if I remove my laptop, I'm useless. I not said that I will not be happy to be useless. Huh? It's okay for me. No, there is like many things that makes you happy, but there is so usually the most important part is to have, like, I think, like, good relationship with people around you. I could have been a software developer at Facebook, maybe participate to create, like, Instagram filters. I think this is completely useless, even if you give me a computer. And I prefer to have dedicated my life to try to educate and create a good education for everybody. So this, like, fulfill myself, okay? Even if I'm a software engineer, I prefer to do something and try to serve humanity than to do nothing. So there is no problem with this.
Третий и четвертый вопрос.
Okay, question 3 and question 4. My name is Aljas Boshakirov. I am from academics company in innovations in education. I have a question to each of the speakers. Can I do that for everyone? No, only one question.
Mr. Kwame, thank you very much for visiting Kazakhstan. I hope that a visit of Kazakhstan will make you happier. My question is, everybody knows that a lot of guys from India work in the top, like a top management in the worldwide in the IT companies. How do you think, what we have to do like a nation to make the same result? Thank you.
It's a very tough question so it's really a question about like the freedom of work and you have to take, when you're on the ground field, you have to take decision, okay, and your decision can be a bit decolorated from what like the, let's say like the government level of your company, of your country, of whatever, can see about what's happening on the ground level. The thing is, in the US, inside a company, they have a way to judge you and your efficiency that is completely different than what you can find, for example, instead in the old Europe, and I guess here. I never worked in Kazakhstan. We provide software for quant school, but I never did myself some work in a company in Kazakhstan. So it's difficult for me to really to answer. But if you take, like, for example, the old Europe versus like the US, in the US, whoever you are, okay, you can come from Kazakhstan, whatever, they will never judge you where you come from, what is your background, what school you did. You see what I mean? What is important for them is to know if you bring cash or not. Okay? So you like it, you don't like it, whatever. But the thing that is, it's a clear rule. And inside like Silicon Valley, what did happen is like software company, like the big ones, I'm talking about Apple, I'm talking about HP, I'm talking about Facebook, Google, this kind of company, the software engineers, they have bring money inside the company. I'm going to give you like an example that is very well known in the Silicon Valley. You have, when Facebook has been created, it's a software that was working on a computer. And at the same time, the mobile device just arrived. And Zuckerberg is a guy who has been born and raised with like a laptop, okay? So he was on his laptop, on his built Facebook for laptops, and suddenly some of his guys arrived and said like, hey, you know, there is a mobile device and things happening. And he said like, no, we're going to continue on, you know, big browsers and things like that. And he said like, okay, try and show me. They try and they bring more money at Facebook than what he did with the computer. So finally he decided, okay, we're going to switch the company to laptop, from laptop to mobile device. And we're going to do it right now. And now you're the engineer who creates this thing. You are the head of the whole division at Facebook. And that's it. There is no like, you are part of the good political party, you come from that university, or I don't know how does it work here. But at Facebook, it's just like, you are the best, so you get the best job, and that's it. And of course, in a software engineering company, what is the most important guy is the software engineer, okay? But this brings a lot of issue for marketers or people who used to have the power inside other company, okay? Who wants to have the COO or the CEO or the CTO seat, and they can't have it, because in fact the most important guy is the software engineer. So yeah, the software engineers are eating the world, and that's it. But maybe in 10 years it's going to change to something else.
Thank you. And the last question, but very quick, if you still have it. Молодой человек, вы поднимали руку. Вы будете задавать вопрос? Девочки, можно микрофон, пожалуйста?
Gentlemen, are you going to ask the question? Yes, I would need a microphone, please. Colleagues, good afternoon, everyone. I'm from Invest Future Company. Thanks a lot for the discussion that we had today. I have a small question and a statement. It's going to be brief. We are actively studying the market of EdTech and study education in Russia and in Kazakhstan. We can see how the guys are employed, including those who are studying at schools and universities. And we can see that when people are employed, 80% of the skills that are learned during the technical interviews are 80% hard skills. And after the employment, those people who remain at work, they remain because of the emotional intelligence. And unfortunately, during today's discussion and during the exhibition, we didn't see any projects related to the emotional intelligence. And my request to you is to further develop emotional intelligence because this could be useful for the businesses. A question to Rauan, if you allow. Given that 40% of graduates from universities, quite often in CIS, they do not work based on their background. You can imagine they study for 4 to 5 years of the active age that you just wasted for education. And my question for the sector, what Kazakhstan does to make sure that the career guidance is more flexible and works to the interests of the students? My question is about career guidance. Thank you. Thanks a lot. This is an important question, and your request about the emotional intelligence, we also think about it. But this is probably the most complex thing as to how to put it together, especially using the platforms and via the content that we are developing. But we are in active search. If you have any ideas, we would be happy to look at them. As for the career guidance, during the previous session, Seyzat Nurbek, the Minister of Higher Education, was in the panel. And before coming to the ministry, he was engaged in an important project related to the career guidance, and the tool that was developed by his team at that stage, which is called Ed Navigator, is indeed quite interesting. And we, in fact, recommend it a lot to the people, and we use it inside the platform. And it indeed provides good results in terms of the parents and children, so that they could understand, at least at the superficial level, the areas that could be of interest for them, and then use it as the basis to look at the subject, skills, and knowledge that could be useful for that kind of employment. Answering your specific question, the fact that this tool was developed in Kazakhstan and the initiative was supported in Kazakhstan is already good. In particular, it was implemented with the support of the government, and I think that this project inspired lots of teams, including teams in EdTech industry who are actively working on that. Thanks a lot. I hope that you received answers to your questions. For our experiment to be pure, let us ask Zhanat Mahataeva to specify the best question, who will receive this book, who takes a big part in my heart from Tall Books with her comments. Personal comments. Who will get this present? I like the question on what we can do to make robotics available for the kids studying in the rural areas. I think it's a great question. My congratulations to you. The present is to you. Thanks a lot for your session. It was meta interesting with you. Please come to our next session. Goodbye, everyone.